Rescuers face more problems searching the sunken South Korean ferry as the death toll continues to rise. Strong currents and poor visibility hamper dives. As relatives watch on, their hopes turn to desperation. Schools under investigation. A former teacher tells ITV News he's warned of problems for years. A second innings for England's new cricket coach, back in charge 5 years after getting the sack. And Kate takes to the controls in Australia for a flying lesson in a fighter jet.
This is ITV News with Charlene White.
Good evening. Rescuers say there's now almost no chance of finding anyone alive aboard the submerged South Korean ferry. With a confirmed number of dead now at 32, the operation is turning into one of recovery. Today, the captain apologised to the victims' families after being arrested on charges of negligence. Martha Fairley reports.
More than 30 metres below the sea's surface, marked by enormous inflatable buoys, lies the capsized Sewol ferry. What began as a rescue mission is now a recovery operation, involving 176 ships, 28 planes and 652 civilian, government and military divers.
현장 상황은 상당히 힘든 편이에요.
The conditions are difficult for ordinary divers, says Cho Bae-gyun, the head of one of the Korean rescue teams, due to the depth, the speed of the current and the weather conditions. Video shows how poor visibility is underwater. Relatives of the 270 missing passengers, many of whom are school children, can only watch and wait. Numb with grief, angry at officials who warn it may take 2 months to bring the ship and the bodies to the surface. Early this morning, Lee Jun-seok, the 69-year-old captain of the ferry, was arrested. I'm sorry to the people of South Korea, he said, and I bow my head in apology to the family of the victims. The captain and 2 other crew members, including the third mate who was steering at the time of the accident, are accused of negligence. Salvage cranes stand by to lift the sunken ferry, but that won't happen until all hope of finding survivors has faded. Martha Fairley, ITV News.
A former teacher at a school under investigation in Birmingham has told ITV News he tried many times to raise concerns about creeping Islamification but was ignored. Officials are now looking into claims of a hardline Muslim plot which affects 25 schools across the city. Here's our political correspondent, Romilly Weeks.
It's become known as the Trojan horse plot, an alleged attempt to Islamise schools in Birmingham. Now a leaked report into 3 of the schools, including Park View here, is alleged to conclude that non-Muslim and girl pupils were discriminated against. A former teacher at Park View told me that he'd been trying to raise concerns about what was happening at the school for years.
I raised concerns that the governing body was becoming more Islamic, that we were only teaching Islamic studies and that the girls were, for example, being required to wear headscarves, whereas previously they haven't. I have photographs of girls previously, none of whom were wearing headscarves.
What happened to teachers who raised concerns?
They were forced out, they were sidelined so that they either resigned or they were disciplined and dismissed.
The Department for Education report leaked to The Telegraph is said to find 20 separate breaches, including pupils being segregated at one school, non-Muslim children discriminated against at another, and at more than one, core parts of the syllabus left out because they were un-Islamic.
It's absolutely clear that state-funded schools should have a duty to make sure that there's no gender segregation or cultural segregation for political or religious reasons.
No one from Parkview Educational Trust responded to our calls today, and the Department for Education refused to comment on leaked documents. A total of 25 Birmingham schools are being investigated, meaning that thousands of pupils in the city will return after Easter, with all this hanging over them. Romilly Weeks, ITV News, Birmingham.
Police say a prominent dissident Republican killed in Belfast yesterday was shot several times whilst at an office in the west of the city. Tommy Crossan was a former leader of the Continuity IRA. A 26-year-old man has been arrested over his murder. A 7-year-old boy who was set on fire in a street in Aberdeen has been transferred to a specialist unit where he remains in a critical condition. He's been named as Preston Flores. Police say petrol was involved, but so far there's no evidence it was a deliberate act. And officials in Australia say the underwater search for the missing Malaysian Airlines plane could be complete within a week, but they've denied suggestions the search could be scaled down. The Duchess of Cambridge has taken to the controls of an Australian Air Force jet on the latest stop of the royal tour of the country. From Brisbane, our royal correspondent Tim Hewitt reports.
This should have been William's world, a chance for him to be the picture of the day. A trained pilot, the cockpit of an F-18 fighter seemed the right place to be. But when he asked Kate if she fancied jumping in the back, it was clear that sitting behind him was not the place for her. And so, with as much elegance as she could muster, the Duchess of Cambridge climbed into the front seat. Kate in the cockpit, the front page picture, and one of the lasting images of this tour. In Brisbane, where the Queen drew huge crowds 3 years ago, there was a short walkabout, an armful of gifts for Prince George, and a small girl held aloft with a message guaranteed to attract attention.
Everyone here really wants to see Prince George, of course, but his engagements are by appointment only.
It will be George's day tomorrow. He'll pay an Easter Sunday visit to Sydney Zoo, making sure that in Monday's papers his mother really will be in the back seat. Tim Hewitt, ITV News, Brisbane.
Sport, and Peter Moores has been confirmed as the head coach of English cricket for a second time. Moore's previous spell in charge ended in 2009 after a fallout with Kevin Peterson. He succeeds Andy Flower, who resigned in January after the disastrous Ashes tour in Australia.
I think I've got a lot to offer. Over the last 5 years I've been working at Lancashire, and when the opportunity came, if I'm honest, I wouldn't have thought the chance was going to come 6 months ago, but things change very quickly in sport.
In the Premier League, Fulham remain 2 points from safety after they lost at Tottenham. Harry Kane scored his third goal in 3 matches as Spurs ran out 3-1 winners at White Hart Lane to retain a slim chance at the top 4 finish. Cardiff also remain in trouble despite drawing with Stoke. Aston Villa against Southampton ended goalless. Swansea won 2-1 at Newcastle. Crystal Palace made it 5 wins in a row, beating West Ham 1-0. In the late game, it's currently Chelsea 1, Sunderland 1. In Scotland, an injury-time equaliser earned Motherwell a point at home to leaders Celtic. Hearts, Partick Thistle, St Mirren and St Johnstone all won. Well, that's it from us for now, but we'll be back with the late news at 11:15, so we see you then. Good evening.
Lovely weather for ducks and us chicks!
Seven Seas Omega-3 range proudly sponsors the ITV National Weather.
Hello there, this is how our weather is shaping up through the course of this evening and overnight. Most places dry, clear skies across the north and west with a touch of frost here, but across southeastern parts, thicker cloud producing some outbreaks of rain by dawn. And that's how we start things for Easter Sunday. A largely dry and fine start to the day. The best of the sunshine across the north and west, but central and eastern parts seeing cloudier skies. And you can see this area of rain pushing up from the near continent. Now, there is some uncertainty tomorrow as to how far north that rain will extend, but where it does push in, the rain will be heavy at times and accompanied by quite a strong wind. Tomorrow's temperatures seeing highs of 17 degrees Celsius.
Seven Seas Omega-3 range proudly sponsors the ITV National Weather.